I wasn't snooping. Let me start with that. I wasn't going through his phone, looking for secrets or drama or anything to feed that tired stereotype of the suspicious wife. It was just sitting there, his phone, face up on the kitchen counter while he was upstairs taking a shower. We were supposed to meet friends for dinner. He said he needed 10 minutes. I said I'd finish packing the kids' lunchboxes for tomorrow. And then, the screen lit up. One little buzz. One message. Last night was everything. I miss you already. My stomach didn't drop. Not at first. It was like a sound got sucked out of the room, but I hadn't processed which one. I read it twice. Then a third time. My heart stayed weirdly still, like it was too stunned to move. The contact name was just a first name, Samantha. No last name. No photo. Just that sentence. Last night was everything. I miss you already. I didn't touch the phone. Didn't scroll. Didn't unlock. I just stood there, watching the screen until it faded to black again. I don't know how long I stood like that. Long enough to lose track of time. Long enough for him to come downstairs dressed, joking, asking if I was ready. I smiled. Said yes. Picked up my purse. My hands were steady. My voice calm. It wasn't shock. Not yet. It was something stranger. Like I'd stepped out of my own skin and was watching someone else live my life. All through dinner I smiled. Laughed at the right moments. Sipped wine. He reached for my hand at one point. I let him take it. His thumb traced a slow circle on the back of mine. A move I once found comforting. Now it just made me wonder how many other hands he'd done that to. Last night, when we got home, he kissed my forehead before heading to his office. Work thing, he said. Just need to send an email. I nodded. Okay. I went upstairs, brushed my teeth, crawled into bed, and lay there, staring at the ceiling fan until I couldn't tell if it was spinning or if I was. I didn't cry. That surprised me. I thought if this ever happened, if I ever found something, I'd fall apart. Break. Scream. Something loud. Something dramatic. But instead, there was just this terrifying quiet inside me. Like the moment you realize the water's colder than it looked, and you've already jumped. I don't know how long I'll keep this to myself. But I know now something broke. And I felt it. Sharp and real. Once you see the crack, you start noticing how the whole wall leans. That's how it was with Paul. One message turned into 1,000 questions, and none of the answers sat right anymore. At first I tried to ignore it, told myself I was being paranoid, hormonal, tired. Classic self-gaslighting. I gave myself lectures in the mirror. But my brain, it was already on the hunt. I started seeing things I used to look right past. His gym bag packed on a Monday morning, even though I knew he didn't go to the gym until Wednesdays. His cologne changing. Slightly. Subtly. The new aftershave he swore someone gave him as a sample. His phone. Always with him. In his pocket. Face down. On silent. He used to leave it all over the house, kitchen counter, bathroom sink, even the kids' toy box once. Now, that thing was more protected than our passports. And then there was the geolocation thing. We used to share our locations not because we needed to, but because life got busy. Can you check where Paul is? I think he forgot the milk. That kind of thing. It wasn't surveillance. It was convenience. Until one day, location unavailable. I refreshed. Closed the app. Reopened it. Same result. I casually asked him later, "Hey, I think you're fine, my friend's glitched. It says you're offline." He barely looked up. "Oh yeah, I turned it off last week. Battery drain." Battery drain. Right. He'd had that same phone for 2 years and never once mentioned battery issues. But now, suddenly it was draining his life force. That's when the dots started lighting up in my head. Not quite connecting yet, but burning quietly. He started complimenting me more, too. Telling me I looked beautiful when I hadn't showered. Offering to make dinner. Buying flowers on a Thursday just because. It sounds sweet, right? Except it wasn't him. It wasn't real. Paul wasn't the flowers on a weekday guy. He was the order pizza and let's fold laundry together kind of husband. And honestly, I liked that version better. The one who didn't try so hard. The one who didn't look so guilty. Because that's what it was. Not love. Guilt. Guilt smells like new cologne and sounds like overcompensating kindness. He started saying I love you more, But there was a hesitation. A beat too long. Like he was saying it to check a box, not because he felt it in his bones. I started tracking the delays. The new patterns. Late meetings on Fridays, always Fridays. And every time he'd walk in with that same slightly too clean look. As if he'd showered somewhere that wasn't our house. The thing is, you don't need hard proof to feel the truth crawling up your spine. I wasn't crazy. I was finally awake. And what I saw, every day after that message, told me, this wasn't just a bad patch. This was something else. Something growing. Something with a name I didn't know yet. I've been with Paul for over a decade. I know his silences. I know the one he uses when he's thinking through a problem at work. I know the one he uses when he's holding back something to protect me, like when his mom was sick and he didn't want to stress me during my pregnancy. I know the silence of exhaustion after the kids are finally in bed and the dishwasher's running and we're both too tired to talk. But this silence? This was new. This was the silence of someone who wasn't with me anymore, even when he was sitting right next to me. He still said all the right things. Still asked how my day was. Still offered to pick up milk or handle bedtime if I looked wiped. From the outside, it probably seemed like he was the perfect husband. Supportive. Kind. Present. But his eyes? They didn't land on me the same way. When he looked at me, I could feel the space between us. A mental arm's length. Like he was studying me from somewhere far off and already half gone. He started saying things like, I just need some time to think, or work's been intense lately, I'm just drained. And I nodded. Of course I did. Because that's what you do when someone you love says they're tired. But I wasn't stupid. This wasn't exhaustion. This was detachment, wrapped in polite excuses. He stopped reaching for me at night. Stopped touching my back as he passed behind me in the kitchen. Those little things, the unconscious things, just disappeared. At first, I told myself maybe it was a phase. Maybe we were just out of sync. But one night, while we were watching some crime show we used to love, I turned to make a comment, and he wasn't even watching. He was staring at his phone, slack-jawed, lit up by a screen that clearly wasn't about a homicide case. When I asked, what's so interesting, he flinched. Literally flinched. Then smiled. Too fast. Too fake. Oh, nothing. Just an email from Kyle. About the strategy doc for Q2. Strategy doc. Right. At 10:37 p.m. on a Saturday. I laughed. Sounds riveting. He smiled relieved. Like I bought it. But I didn't. Not anymore. I started to take mental notes. How long he lingered in the car before coming in. How many times he said, late meeting versus how many actual calendar invites I saw. How often he said, just tired when what he really meant was emotionally unavailable. And the weirdest part? The more I noticed, the quieter I became. I stopped bringing it up. Stopped asking where he'd been. Stopped inviting him into the little moments of my day. Because I already knew he was gone. Not physically, not fully. But emotionally? Spiritually? He was checked out. Still living in the house, but no longer in it. Still sleeping in our bed, but dreaming somewhere else. Still calling me babe, but without the breath that made it mean anything. We were roommates. With shared bills, shared kids, and separate hearts. I don't think he even realized how obvious he was. Or maybe he did. Maybe he was hoping I'd catch on without him having to confess. Because this pattern of distance? It wasn't accidental. It was a setup. A slow fade. And I was finally beginning to see the shape of what he was fading into. It was a Thursday night. He said he had dinner plans with a new client. Someone from out of town. Very casual, he said, just burgers and shop talk. I smiled. Said sounds good. Kissed his cheek as he grabbed his keys. But something in me had already decided. Tonight, I needed to know. I didn't have a plan. No trench coat, no dark sunglasses. Just jeans, a hoodie, and the quiet determination of a woman who's tired of not knowing what kind of life she's actually living. 10 minutes after he left, I followed. I stayed a few cars behind. No music. Just the hum of tires and the sound of my heart trying not to beat too loud. He wasn't heading downtown. Not to any restaurant or business district. He turned off the main road and into a quiet residential area, one of those neighborhoods with clean sidewalks, trimmed hedges, and mailboxes that all match. Then he pulled into a driveway. A house I'd never seen before. Modest. Pretty. Lights on inside. He got out slowly. No phone in hand. No sense of hurry. And then the front door opened. She was standing there. Not dressed up. Not seductive. Just comfortable. In leggings and oversized sweatshirt, bare feet. Like he wasn't a guest but expected. Like he belonged. He smiled at her. Not the smile he gave me when he was trying to convince me everything was fine. This one was real. Relaxed. Warm. She stepped aside and he walked in. No kiss. No touching. But the way his hand brushed hers in passing? The way she looked at him? It was enough. They didn't need to kiss for me to understand. He didn't just find someone else. He had a life there. A version of himself that didn't include me. I didn't stay long. Just enough to watch the door close. Enough to hear the soft thud of betrayal settle into my chest. I didn't cry. Didn't panic. I just drove home, slowly, calmly, like I'd just come back from the grocery store. He came in around 11. Said they talked longer than expected. Client had a lot of questions. I nodded. Must have been productive. He smiled. Yeah. Hopefully it'll pay off. I just looked at him. This man I married. This man I thought I knew. He undressed. Brushed his teeth. Slid into bed beside me like nothing had changed. But everything had. And he didn't know it yet, but I was already gone. Not from the house. From the story. Because I finally understood my part was over. And I wasn't going to beg for a rewrite. He thought silence meant peace. That my lack of screaming, crying, or accusing meant things were okay again. But what he didn't know, what he never understood, is that my silence was the funeral. I didn't ask where he'd been. Didn't demand explanations or timelines or names. I didn't touch his phone, though by now I knew the code. I didn't follow him again. Because I didn't need more proof. I had seen enough. And more than that, I had felt enough. The night I saw him step into her house, it was like a thread snapped inside me. Not the thread that tied me to him. That had frayed long ago. This one was thinner, older. The one that kept me playing my role. The understanding wife. The busy mom. The forgiver. That thread? Gone. So I made a list. Not of what he'd done, I didn't need reminders. But of what I had to do. Call the bank. Open my own account. Change the password to my email. Check on the lease for that little rental by the lake I'd always liked. And I did it. All of it. Quietly. Precisely. While still making dinner. Still folding laundry. Still smiling when the kids asked for waffles instead of cereal. He didn't notice. That's what broke me the most. Not the cheating. Not even who he cheated with. But that he didn't see the woman in front of him transforming right before his eyes. I started packing the little things first. A few books. A winter coat I'd stashed in the back of the closet. My journal. I found the box of photos we used to flip through on anniversaries. I took half. Left the rest. It wasn't a plan for escape. It was preparation for freedom. Each drawer I cleared felt like unhooking another piece of armor. I didn't rush. I didn't hide. I just moved. He'd kiss my cheek before leaving in the mornings like habit. Love you, he'd mumble. I'd smile. You too. Not because I meant it. Because he needed it to feel normal. And I was done explaining to men what they didn't want to hear. He thought he had time. Thought we were in a rough patch. Thought I was giving him space. And I was. Just not the kind he imagined. It wasn't space to come clean or fix it. It was space for me to leave. Because the longer I stayed silent, the louder it became inside me. This isn't my life. Not anymore. And soon it wouldn't be my house either. It was a Sunday morning. The kids were still at mom's. The house was too quiet, no cartoons, no cereal crunching, no little feet thumping up the stairs. Just me, the coffee I didn't finish, and him. He sat on the edge of the couch like it burned. Hands clasped, shoulders hunched, mouth tight. I need to talk, he said, voice low. I didn't answer. I just looked at him. Not cruel, not curious, just present. Like a witness. He took a breath, shaky. Like he was the one who'd been wronged. I've been confused, he started. I know something's been off. Between us. I blinked. That's it. No nod. No interruption. He looked relieved, which told me everything. He still thought I was giving him a chance. I never meant to hurt you, he continued. I didn't plan any of it. It happened. And I didn't know how to stop it. Of course not. No one ever knows how to stop a second life they willingly built. He leaned forward. I miss us. I miss how things used to be. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so predictably scripted. He wasn't missing me. He was missing his comfort. His control. I never stopped loving you, Claire. That was the line. The one I think he thought would break me. But it didn't. Because by the time someone finally says, "I never stopped loving you," it usually means they did. For a while. And they hope the words will rewind the damage. It doesn't. I stared at him, this man I had shared so much with. Years. Memories. A home. And all I could feel was nothing. Not anger. Not sadness. Not hope. Just this clean, cold space between us where love used to live. He waited for me to speak. I didn't. Because what was left to say? I had already screamed in my head. Already cried in the car. Already said goodbye 1,000 times while folding his shirts. He was late. Not to the truth. To the moment. Because understanding came, but not for him. Came for me. I finally saw the man in front of me for who he really was. Not a villain, not a monster. Just someone too weak to tell the truth. Too small to hold a real woman. And I was done shrinking to make space for someone who refused to grow. He whispered, "Do you still love me?" I stood. Picked up my mug. "Love isn't the problem," I said. And I walked away. I used to love this house. Every corner held a memory. The kitchen where we danced barefoot at midnight. The hallway we painted together badly and laughed until we dropped the roller. The front porch where he kissed me the day we brought our daughter home. But after everything, the house felt haunted. Not by ghosts, but by the version of life I thought I had. The coffee mugs in the cabinet? I bought those on our 5th anniversary. He said he liked the blue glaze. Now I couldn't even hold one without wondering who else he'd poured coffee for. The sheets on our bed? I couldn't tell if the smell was detergent or perfume that wasn't mine. Even the sound of his footsteps, that heavy familiar rhythm, made my skin crawl. Like a stranger had learned my husband's walk. I started moving through the rooms like I was borrowing someone else's home. Opening drawers I didn't trust. Closing doors that didn't feel like mine. And then one morning I opened the closet and saw our clothes side by side. His suits, my sweaters, and I just stood there. Still. Quiet. And I knew. I wasn't staying. There wasn't going to be a rebuilding phase. No second honeymoon. No dramatic therapy breakthrough. I wasn't going to spend another month, another week, another minute in a house where every object whispered a lie. So I made an appointment. Found a lawyer. Filed. He didn't fight me. That part hurt more than I expected. He just nodded. Quiet. Maybe relieved. Maybe resigned. Maybe he knew this version of him, the one who betrayed, who pretended, who chose someone else and thought I wouldn't notice, had finally used up all his chances. The papers were signed with 2 pens that never should have met. He didn't ask me to reconsider. Didn't beg. Didn't offer to change. Just said, "Okay." And I realized in that moment that I'd been more alone than I ever understood. Even when we were together. I walked out of the office, clutching the manila envelope with my new beginning inside. Sat in my car. Closed my eyes. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt still. Not happy. Not yet. But still. Like a book just closed. And a door opened. It started the week after the papers were filed. First a text. Just one line. "I miss you." I stared at it for a full 5 minutes. Not because I was tempted to reply, but because of how absurd it felt. Like someone knocking on a burned-down house asking if they can come back in. Then came the emails. Longer. Wordier. Full of explanations I never asked for. He said things like, "I didn't know how to handle what I was feeling. You were always too good for me. I messed up, but that doesn't mean I stopped loving you." Some nights he'd call. I didn't answer. So he left voicemails, quiet, shaky ones. He'd say my name like it might undo something. But here's the thing no one tells you. When someone breaks you, their apology isn't glue. It's just noise. He wasn't reaching out because he saw me. He was reaching out because he lost control. And men like Paul? Control is everything. The day I stopped chasing answers, the day I stopped asking why or with who or how long, was the day he lost his grip on me. And now he was flailing. Not from heartbreak. From power slipping through his hands. I read one of the emails just once. He wrote, "I remember the way you used to hum when you cooked. I hated it back then. Now I'd give anything to hear it." And I realized he missed a version of me that no longer existed. The woman who hummed in the kitchen was someone who trusted him. Someone who still believed she was loved. She died the day he walked into another woman's home and smiled like she was his. And I was someone else now. Someone who didn't need to scream to be heard. Someone who didn't need to reply to be clear. So I let the messages come. Watched them pile up like unread apologies. Every "I'm sorry" he sent, it echoed into silence. Because the truest no a woman can give is not a door slammed or a drink thrown or a suitcase packed. It's a phone that doesn't ring back. A heart that doesn't flinch. A life that moves forward like he was never the center of it. I moved into a smaller house. Nothing fancy. 2 bedrooms, tiny backyard, creaky stairs. The kitchen tile is a little crooked. The paint in the hallway doesn't match perfectly. But it's mine. No shared closet. No toothbrush that isn't mine next to the sink. No ghost of someone else's perfume on a jacket left hanging behind the door. The first morning there I made coffee barefoot, opened the window wide and just stood still. The house didn't know him. There were no memories in the walls. No shadows I had to ignore. Just quiet. And space. And breath. I started working more. Not because I had to, though money was tighter now, but because I wanted to. Because building something of my own suddenly felt necessary. Important. Like replanting roots after a storm. And with the kids. God, the kids. We laughed again. At dinner. On the floor with board games. In the car with bad music turned up too loud. They didn't ask for explanations. Just consistency. Love. Someone who showed up fully. I gave them that. Not because I was perfect. But because I finally had room to be real. And then, there was him. Not Paul. Someone new. We met through mutual friends. Nothing dramatic, no spark that lit the world on fire. Just someone who made eye contact. Listened. Laughed without trying too hard. The first time he asked if I wanted to grab coffee, I panicked. Not because I didn't want to, but because for so long my instinct was to shrink. To say, I'm not ready. But I realized, maybe I wasn't ready for a relationship. But I was ready for warmth. For a conversation that didn't involve custody schedules or timelines or therapy. We walked. Talked. He told me about his daughter. His divorce. His slow rebuild. And I saw in his eyes that familiar thing. The look of someone who had been gutted and stitched themselves back together. One shaky knot at a time. We didn't fall in love. Not yet. But something opened. Not a door. Not a chapter. A window. Just enough to let the light in. Not because I needed someone to fix me, but because I had already done that work. And now, there was room for more. Not replacement. Not distraction. Just more. More laughter. More kindness. More of me. And for the first time in what felt like forever, that was enough. Came in a plain envelope. No gold seal. No dramatic court stamp. Just a date. A signature. A number at the bottom of a page that officially declared our marriage done. I stared at it for a second. No tears. No shaking hands. No dramatic collapse to the floor like you see in the movies. Just stillness. I folded the paper, put it back in the envelope, and slid it into the drawer next to my socks. Not out of disrespect, but because I no longer needed it to be visible. It didn't define me. That paper wasn't freedom. I was. The emails still come now and then. Some short. Hope you're okay. Some long. I've been thinking, if things had gone differently. I don't block him. But I don't read them either. Not out of anger. But because that chapter is closed. Really fully closed. The kind where you don't even dog-ear the page for reference. Sometimes I catch glimpses of the old life. A sweater I forgot was in a donation box. A memory that bubbles up from nowhere. And it's strange how soft they feel now. Not sharp. Not heavy. Just finished. There's no craving to go back. Only quiet gratitude that I got out. My daughter asked the other day, "Are you ever going to change your name back?" I smiled. "No," I said. Because I didn't take his. I always kept mine. She blinked. Really? Really? But inside I knew what she meant. She wasn't asking about paperwork. She was asking about me. And here's the truth. I didn't go back to who I was before him, because she doesn't exist anymore. Too much has burned. Too much rebuilt. But I did come home to the part of me that was never his to shape. The part that watched, waited, endured, and finally walked. Not with a suitcase. Not with a dramatic goodbye, but with keys to her own place. A new lease. A new laugh. The part that didn't apologize anymore for needing honesty. For choosing peace. For drawing a line. So no, I'm not his ex. I'm not the woman he lost. I'm not the one who couldn't keep her husband. I'm Claire. No asterisk. No label. No echo. Just Claire. And that's the real ending. Not a happy one. True one. And finally, it's mine. I didn't think buying a couch would be emotional. I thought it'd be fabric swatches, price tags, maybe an argument with myself over leather or cozy. Turns out, it was a full-on existential crisis in the middle of aisle 7. I stood there staring at 3 different shades of gray, and had this ridiculous moment like, wait, who am I picking this for? Because for years every purchase was filtered through him. He didn't like velvet. He thought patterns were too busy. He once vetoed a mustard yellow armchair because it was too loud. So there I was, holding a sample of mustard yellow like it was a protest flag. A young guy working the floor came over. Late 20s, way too enthusiastic. You good? He asked. I'm buying a couch, I replied, like that explained the spiral I was clearly having. He nodded like he got it. Going for comfy or showpiece? I'm going for never had to ask a man again. He blinked. I smiled. 20 minutes later, I walked out with a receipt for a ridiculously soft, slightly ridiculous-looking mustard yellow couch. When it arrived, I had to assemble it myself. There were 3 screws left over. I'm choosing to believe they were optional. I poured a glass of wine, sank into that thing in my favorite hoodie, and kicked my feet up on the coffee table I picked out without anyone saying it was too rustic. And I just sat there. Not scrolling. Not checking emails. Just existing. On a couch that didn't match the old life. In a house that didn't remember his voice. And I laughed. Alone. Because honestly, it was the best damn couch I've ever owned.